of course, the TRANSVAL-EU project partnership, I would like to welcome you to the Transval webinar in order to exchange ideas on digital skills as transversal skills. And the aim of this event is to showcase a concrete example where digital skills are considered as transversal or transferable across different work and life context. My name is Palvolgyi, CEO for Digital, and I would like to say a few words about our All Digital Weeks, because the Transval webinar is part of our All Digital Weeks program. All Digital Weeks campaign is one of the major pan-European awareness-raising campaigns on digital skills for inclusion and empowerment. It's organized by All Digital Network and its partners and member organizations. We run the campaign since 2010, and since then we helped 1.4 million people to get online for the first time or enhance their digital skills to fully exploit the potentials of digital transformation. Every year, the campaign brings over 100,000 participants from more than 20 European countries, exciting online and offline events and training opportunities tackling digital transformation. The campaign takes place mostly online in these days and years, but offline as well in community centers, libraries, community centers, schools, and other venues across Europe. And it involves international and national partners and participating organizations in different European countries. The campaign was launched 2 weeks ago on the 14th of March with the participation of EU Commissioner Mariya Gabriel, who said that we are at a turning point for development of digital skills and we need the support of all education and training providers and stakeholders. And she said, "I count on you to carry on bringing this vision forward." This year's campaign's motto is "Enhance your digital skills," and this is our call to action for all Europeans to take an active part for their better future. And how you can join the All Digital Weeks campaign: you can organize an event or training activity on digital competencies, and you can put your event on the map of alldigitalweeks.eu website. The campaign is supported by the European Commission, and we have industrial partners as well to support our activities. And I would like to thank Microsoft, Huawei, and Certiport to support our campaign. But I also want to very much thank our strategic partners, who are international organizations, European networks, who support us with dissemination and communication of activities, the events, and the results of the campaign. Every week we have a thematic focus, and during this week we are promoting explicitly the use of the digital competence framework, DigiComp. And this Monday we had the launch event of week 3, where the new or the updated digital competence framework, its 2.2 version, was presented to a great number of participants. Yesterday we had a webinar on exchanging ideas on transforming libraries in the digital age, and today we discussed digital skills and transversal skills during this webinar. And later this afternoon we have another example, the Hungarian DigiComp system, an example how the DigiComp framework is implemented in practice in Hungary. And just lastly, we have 2 more weeks of the campaign, and week 4 will start next week, and we are going to talk about achieving cybersecurity and safer internet through different events and programs. And the last week of the campaign will be focused on improving STEM and STEAM skills for society, and very importantly, encouraging girls' and women's participation in STEM studies and careers. And that's All from my side, thank you very much. And I would like now to give the floor to my colleague, Gabriela Ruseva, to present the speakers of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Yes, it is my pleasure to introduce today's event agenda and our speakers, which we are honored to have. So as you can imagine from the title of the project TRANSVAL, it deals with transversal skills, and digital skills are one of those transversal skills, but the project is broader. It deals with different kind of transversal skills. Why we chose to organize this event exactly in this week, which, as Peter said, is dealing and promoting the use of European competence framework, is because the project is also developing a European competence framework, the common transversal competence framework, which we are going to hear more about later in the presentations. The project has two, let's say, distinct and very concrete digital aspects. One of them is that it is looking at digital skills and their transversal nature. Digital skills, as you know, are a key competence, are considered as a key competence, but in this project we are looking from the perspective of transversal skills at them, and it is really interesting to see this perspective. And the other digital aspect of the project is that we are also looking at the digitalization of validation processes of transversal skills. I will not tell you more. This will be the subject of the presentations that you will hear. First, we will hear from Sarah Rabel and Julia Wauder from the project coordinator, the Austrian Institute for the Internationalization of Education, which is an agency of the Ministry of Education. And they will tell you more about the project and its objectives. Then we will hear concretely about the transversal competence framework. What are these transversal skills, how many, and what is the role of digital in this, from Pauline Boivin from the Lifelong Learning Platform. Then we will hear more about the tools, this digitalization of validation processes, and what kind of digital tools are used to identify and to document and to assess competencies, transversal competencies, from Mariya Dzhengozova from Austrian Research Institute 3S. And finally, we will zoom on one such digital tool for the validation of transversal competencies, which is called the NADINE platform, and Laura Profiri from Pluriversum will tell us more about this tool. Finally, we have quite some time actually for questions and answers and discussion. We have prepared some questions for you through Mentimeter, and we hope that you will stay until the end and you will be involved actively in this final part of the event. So I wish you a nice event, useful one. I hope that you will learn many new things as we are doing in the project, learning day by day. And with this, I would like to invite Sarah to dig deeper into the project.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much, Gabriela, for the very kind introduction. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you today, and over the next 1.5 hours talk about digital skills as transversal skills. But before we plunge into the topic of digital skills as transversal skills, we would like to use this opportunity to give you a brief high-level overview of where we're currently at with the TRANSVAL project, and give you some background of how it basically came into life and why it's something that that is very interesting at this stage in 2022. So let me start off by taking you basically down memory lane. So this is the background of how TRANSVAL-EU came into being. So we encountered a very paradox situation on the job market. So on the one hand, there's an increasing demand for transversal skills by employers. That's implicitly mentioned However, there is also a very slow integration of transversal skills in validation and guidance processes and policies. And that to us is a paradox and a gap that we wish to close through the TRANSVAL-EU project. To start off, let me give you a brief overview. So the purpose is that we wish to strengthen the validation processes of transversal skills that have been acquired in non-formal and informal settings. And by doing that, we want to experiment with innovative approaches in validation of transversal skills, and consequently embed these lessons learned in validation guidance practices and policies. Our target groups of the project are twofold. The direct target group consists of validation and guidance practitioners, and the indirect target group of validation and guidance end users, which are adults in our case. The stakeholder landscape of TRANSVAL-EU is very diverse. So we're looking at the staff in validation and guidance centers, in public employment services, civil society organizations, also social partners, and adult education centers, policymakers, and researchers. So we have kicked off the TRANSVAL-EU project a year ago, almost to date. So we've just completed the first year of TRANSVAL-EU, and it will be running until August 2023. We are working with a very great group of people. So we have 16 full partners that include 4 partner ministries from Austria, Italy, Belgium, and Lithuania. And altogether, these 16 partners come from 7 EU countries. In addition to that, we have the pleasure and honor to draw upon the expertise of 13 associate partners that are supporting us in the project and the process of creating all the deliverables and outputs. And with that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Julia Walder, for her presentation on the project phases.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Also from my part, welcome. We are glad and honored to be part of the All Digital Weeks and are happy to present that project. We have sketched the project in different phases. We started off with research, which was highly interesting to discover the inventory of the status quo. We sketched a state-of-the-art report and individual country sheets on validation and guidance in Europe. If you happen to have already been on our homepage, or please do afterwards on transvalproject.eu, you find in the download section those deliverables. We were actually we still are very proud of, and in the course of the making was highly interesting to see what is done. The individual country sheets are of the five countries who are piloting in the policy experimentation, which is Austria, Belgium, Italy, Poland, and Lithuania. And we collected good and innovative practices across Europe. We did that in in-depth interviews, and we also did that in a European survey, which was also highly interesting to see what is already done in Europe in that regard, and what covers the 4 stages of validation in the whole validation process, covering identification, documentation, assessment, and certification. In the course of taking inventory of the state of play and collecting the good and innovative practices, we also developed a common transversal competence framework, which you will hear more about from Pauline. And we also developed a competence profile for the practitioners. As Sarah mentioned, our main target group are validation and guidance practitioners as multipliers. And in the competence profile, we focused on transversal competences and the competences needed to support this process in the validation. The second phase is the curriculum development. We shortlisted and selected tools and methods which we thought to be very interesting and valuable for the policy experimentation. You will get a presentation of 2 of those later today. And we sketched a curriculum for the curriculum development, for a training program for the practitioners in validation and guidance. We will pilot this curriculum in a 2-day European training, which we will have in Perugia, Italy in May. We are very much looking forward to that for several reasons, but also it will be our first opportunity to really meet in person. As Sarah has said, TRANSVAL-EU has been going for a year without us being able to actually meet. We are happy that this will be our first meeting in person, and also that this will already be with practitioners, and to get a feedback on the curriculum. This is also one of the highlights of TRANSVAL-EU, that we work closely with experts in all fields, with practitioners, with public authorities, with researchers. So we really aim to be as close to reality as possible. The third phase are field trials. The recruitment of participants has already kicked off for practitioners and end users. In the national training, we, as I said, pilot the curriculum development and the tools and methods. And in the course of the policy experimentation, we will have national trainings in the 5 piloting countries, and then also implementation with end users to see how that works, and how the aim of the project to raise awareness for transversal competences and to find tools and modalities to make transversal competences visible in the visible and explicit in the process of validation, how that goes. Phase 4 and 5 are research evaluation and policy recommendation. We have not yet started, but I will show you where we stand in terms of timeline for the project. So we have done the inventory of the state of the art and the curriculum development, with all that encompassed those 2 very big parts of the project, and are on the verge to go into the field trials experimentation, which is the heart of the policy experimentation, and we are very much looking forward to that. In the curriculum development, in the stage of the curriculum development and the state of the art, which is very important, of course, we had to gain a common understanding amongst ourselves what are transversal skills and what is important according to us, according to research, according to the partnership and the national contexts. Which competencies do we want to pilot? And of course, digital competences and digital skills have been very, very important in that regard. So I will hand over to my colleague Pauline, who will give you more insight on the framework and how the digital competencies came into play.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and I also thank All Digital for organizing this event and giving us the opportunity to present this great project. So I will give you a presentation, a short one, on the transversal competence framework that we did. And yes, I forgot to say, I'm Pauline and I'm project and policy coordinator at the Lifelong Learning Platform, which is an NGO based in Brussels. So of course we are aware of all the European competence framework that has been produced in the past years. There is of course the one on languages, the key competence framework for lifelong learning, of course digital competence framework, entrepreneurship competence framework, the life competence framework, and also more recently the green competence framework. So we have this in mind, and we used it in our inspiration to build and to design our transversal competence framework. But our main inspiration or good practice that we that we reuse in our project is coming from a European project called RecTech, which also has been continued, and the continuation is called RecTech Plus, and they have built a referential based on European qualification frameworks levels, so up to 8 levels with RecTech Plus on transversal skills, and we really took inspiration in this project on this competence framework. We also have had a chance to have a look at the work done by ESCO, so the classification, European classification for skills, competence, and qualification and occupations. And they've been working for the past 2 years on doing a mapping of all transversal skills. And I think this is also great work to be aware of, and that also has inspired our projects. So I will, I know it's very small, but I will just zoom in just a little bit to give you just a short overview of the amazing work done by the ESCO working group. So design this mapping. So you see, I think there's a list of at least 80 transversal skills, and they have clustered it. So you would find on the top right the core skills and competencies. So that gathers all the literacy skills, and including, of course, the digital skills. You would also find a cluster about thinking skills and competencies. I'm not going into the details, just for you to be aware of what has been done. And you can see examples of then the skills and the sub-skills that they have outlined here. The third cluster is about self-management skills and competencies. There's also a cluster about social and communication skills, and physical and manual skills, and last but not least, the life skills and competences. So they also drew a lot of inspiration of the work done at European level on the European competence framework I mentioned previously. And as you saw, so there's digital skills as a core skill. So, you know, it's also linked to literacy. And this is the different skills that they have listed. So they consider it as transversal. So basically you can use it in different jobs, occupation, in your work, but also in your life, personal life. So this is the skills that they listed, and you can really see like operating digital hardware is using a computer. Of course, you use it in your personal life and work. Doing web research, this is the same, it's transversal. The only skills maybe it's perhaps less transversal for me, it would be the applied by basic programming skills, but I'm sure they have a very good reason that they have included here. And yeah, that's also a big inspiration in our projects. Now, we have designed a competence framework for transversal skills, but of course we wouldn't go into these 80 skills, because then we have to experiment with the practitioners, we have to validate those skills, and we can't do that for all skills. So we decided to have a short selection of 12 skills or competencies. And among all these 12 competences that I will present now, we have shortlisted some of them, because again, we have to reduce the number of the skills we can actually validate. And we did that consulting the field trials partner, asking, okay, what are the most relevant skills in your context with your target group for the occupation for which you want to validate those skills. So these are the skills that we listed. The first one is managing and organizing activities, solving problems and reacting to the unforeseen, cooperation, managing resources, time, human resources, etc. Using oral communication in one or several languages, very important. Taking professional, social, and cultural norms into account. Using written communication. And communicating using digital technologies. managing information, critical thinking, building your career and developing your competencies, so learning to learn, etc. Self-reflection. So these are the 12 transversal skills that we chose to focus on, and you can see highlighted in orange the ones that we have selected for the field trials. And communicating using digital technologies, one of them. So we have designed this referential. I know it's a lot of information, but I will just take you through. I mean, there are different levels from beginner to advanced levels. So based on the EQF 8 level. And of course, it starts with low autonomy. When you follow instruction, you have basic capability in using computer and digital technologies. And it follows a path where you gain in autonomy, where you can even customize the technology that you use, that you can evaluate your choice of technologies, as well as developing even standards and rules on how to use these technologies. And finally, in the last level, it's about really designing a strategy on how to use this technology in the best way as possible, depending on the audience and the format. And now what we're going to do with this referential? Well, as it was mentioned previously by Julia, we are going to train practitioners in the field about how to validate transversal skills. And we will select the relevant tools and methods that we'll use to validate those skills. We will, of course, you have seen the referential, we have to adapt it to the certain context, target group, different occupations. And that also means that we'll have to revise the descriptors that you have seen to contextualize them, depending on the job, occupation, if it's the target group is low skills or high skills. We will revise this, and it's a work in progress. It's not set in stone, of course, and during the project lifetime, we will improve what we have designed. And then we will also implement the curriculum that we have designed in national training, the national level with practitioners. And finally, we will experiment that, the practitioners will experiment with the learning that they gain from the training with the end users, so the validation candidates or the guidance beneficiary. And finally, we will evaluate the results of this research. And yeah, I would say that our next challenge, and also I think it's a very important topic for our discussion today, is, well, what are the tools and methods, what are the best tools and methods that we can use to validate these skills? And we will hear about collection practice in the next presentation, and some tools, digital tools that can help us not only to validate transversal skills, but also with a focus on digital skills. And with the choice that we made in this project to focus on communicating with digital technologies. And yeah, thank you for your attention. I will also invite you to join and follow our project's news. You can do so by navigating, of course, on the website, looking at all the news articles we post. We have many and very, very often. We also have a LinkedIn page where you can follow our work. And finally, we also have a newsletter, and I will, of course, share the link in the chat so that you can easily access those spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Yes, as you said, now we are going to dive into the collection or selection of the tools and methods. And I would like to invite Mariya to, let's say, guide us through this process and through some examples that were selected.
Hello to everybody. I'm also happy to present from a rather different perspective, namely the researcher point of view, since 3S is one of the research partners on board of TRANSVAL. So my topic is about digitalization of validation and guidance. And sorry, I cannot move the slides, some strange things happening. Okay, anyway, yes, now it comes. So I'm going to talk about the digitalization of validation and guidance. And actually the basis of this conversation is the data we have collected during the first research phase of the project. Sorry, I'm having problems with, I cannot just move the slides.
Okay, if you want, we can try to share the presentation from our side.
So, okay, I'm just, I'm going on storytelling. Yeah. So, as I said, the basis of this conversation is the small sample we have done within the research phase. Namely, we have collected 48 good and innovative practices, and roughly half of them and roughly half of them was using digital tools in the process of validation or guidance. So, you know, this is quite a small sample just to illustrate a trend, but I know from research evidence that even before the pandemic, this trend was obvious, mostly in career and guidance research, where a lot of tools have been used in terms of in this direction towards digitalization of services, so less so in validation. So our sample in TRANSVAL, it supports this let's say overall trend. So from the research, it came out that actually digital tools are most commonly used during the identification and the documentation stage of validation, and very, very rarely during the assessment. And the presumption here is that there is an issue about accuracy and reliability, since the digital tools need some time in order to be trusted, let's say so, by key stakeholders. So in terms of target groups, digital tools for validation for career guidance can be used for many different target groups. So there is no pattern here, from all citizens to very specific target groups. In terms of transversal skills, we noted that digital tools were mostly used for personal social skills and also key competencies, including digital skills. We have seen also variability in terms of level of complexity. So we have some digital tools which are with higher level, like, for example, based on the use of certain games. Like my colleague Laura will present the NADINE project in her presentation. And also there are very simple tools like online self-questionnaires, which I'm sure you are all familiar with, or e-portfolios. The next slide, please. So here are some, yes. So here is an example of an e-portfolio, and very briefly, the most characteristic features are that actually it documents experiences. And one very useful feature is that it can combine different types of evidences. So you can use scans, certificates, videos, very different types of evidences, and also open badges. And an open badge, the next slide, please. So what is an open badge? Actually, they are gaining on importance in the last years. So an open badge, it is a kind of a standard and verifiable digital credential, which has metadata about who issues the certificate, to whom, and on what basis. On what basis may include learning outcomes, and also different other evidences. So practically, if we generalize, the digital badge recognizes competencies, skills, behaviors, achievements, and also attitudes of recipients. And it is increasingly popular, for example, in among the NGOs or the third sector organizations in Finland, who use them mostly to recognize the experience gained within voluntary work. And now I'm going to dig into two particular examples. The first one is an Austrian. You have skills, or Du kannst was, which is very popular, very famous initiative within Austria and also outside. It targets well-qualified adults which have special skills in a certain occupation. The tool used is an app which is linked to the ESCO classification, which means it includes or taps to 453 transversal competencies, of course, digital included. The second example is my portfolio, and shortly I have showed you how a screenshot of my portfolio. It is a Polish example. It includes all citizens. For me, this example is important because it shows actually that behind the digital tool as such, there is quite a lot of work in order to gain the trust of key stakeholders in a validation and career guidance context in a country. So the portfolio is linked to a national register of qualifications, meaning that all the transversal skills included in these registers are also reflected in my portfolio. Then digging into Du kannst was. So the initiative was piloted in 2007 in Upper Austria, quite successful. Then it was rolled out in very many different regions. So basically, it provides semi-skilled workers to progress to the status of a skilled worker through the acquisition of an apprenticeship certificate without standing an exam or only parts of it, and without attending the apprenticeship course, which is of a 2-year duration. So the initiative is implemented in this case in the TRANSVAL project of our partner of the Chamber of Labor for Salzburg, which are also using this Skills Lab app, the tool I would like to present, and which was interestingly introduced only last fall. So the experiences are very recent. The interesting thing is that Skills Lab, it collects information about occupational and transversal competencies, since it is linked to ESCO, and there is a user license for one person. It is about €30 or something. The next slide, please. So here, this is an illustration how the tool works. It documents learning experiences from jobs, training, education in the form of a CV. And then here below you have occupational experiences, but the person can also enter transversal skills. These are digital skills, for example. And it is so that automatically learning experiences are linked to competencies, but the person can also search and enter by him or herself their own competencies. The next slide, please. One important thing about this app is that one can weight, so to say, the competence depending on the duration of its usage. Is it is it frequently used or rather not? And the last thing I'm going to say about Du kannst was is that one particular challenge is that using an European classifications, it is sometimes difficult to completely match occupational profiles to it, because you know that there are some national differences in defining occupations and competencies, including transversal competencies also. So going to the Polish example, here it is very interesting, the context, because actually only in 2015, validation of non-formal and informal competencies were introduced in Poland, which meant that the usage of portfolio was accepted with quite a reservation by the key stakeholders, because of lack of previous experiences, doubts about accuracy, reliability, more trust in traditional exams, and the mere reason that CSIRs, for example, were not trained. So there was a project with quite a long title, I'm not going to spell out, but a project in request by the ministry, implemented by our another research partner in TRANSVAL-EU, and within this project they created Moje portfolio, or my portfolio. The next slide, please. So the idea was to not only to technically develop this tool, but also to gain the trust of the key stakeholders. So there were different phases of the project, and during the second phase, the beta version or the pre-version of the portfolio was extensively tested. And please note here, it's quite important, in cooperation with guidance counselors and the assessors, who are the key stakeholders in the validation and guidance process. And actually this triggered, let's say, or contributed to building the trust within by the stakeholders in using the tool. So the finalization of the tool will be this year. And so far there are 13,000 individual profiles. One part of this gaining trust or building trust among stakeholders is the promotional work of the digital tools, which should not be forgotten. And also helpful was the fact that apart from the key stakeholders, which were with a reservation, there were also many institutions which wanted to use digital tools in order to accelerate the processes. So there was also an interest. The next slide, please. The outstanding feature of Smart Portfolio is that it is also linked to a national qualification register in the Polish version, and soon there will be a linkage to ESCO in an English version. Competencies are formulated by users. They can be linked to evidences, or vice versa. Evidences can first be uploaded and then linked to competencies. Like a typical e-portfolio, it supports, of course, the identification and documentation of skills based on a questionnaire, and thus it is a CV is also generated. Then all this information, the skills, the evidences can be presented to third parties, like, for example, would be employers. And the very important thing here is that it can support skills audits, which are in Poland used in the services of the Public Employment Service. So my last slide is a kind of a reflection. Well, we have the digital school, so what are the benefits and what are the concerns? Obviously, we have on one hand that digital tools are easy, they have unlimited access, can involve quite a lot of number of users, and can cover quite very many skills, transversal, occupationals, due to the linkages with classifications, European or national registers. They can use a mix of evidences, a mix of types of different materials supporting evidences. And one important thing is that they can contribute to the smoother sharing of information between services, like data transfer. But important is that these services cooperate and coordinate between themselves. Seen from the other part of the coin, so the concerns. As we have seen in the case of the TRANSVAL, or you have skills, not always Digital tools are free of charge. Mostly they are, but not always. And this may be linked to the development cost included for the development of the tool, which also depends on the level of complexity of the tool. Also, digital tools cannot be suitable for all different users. So there are sometimes low-skilled or vulnerable groups that possibly will need also another type of assistance. It's important to have in mind what reference points or standards are used, because it's, as I said, sometimes national occupational profiles, national definitions of transversal skills may not completely fit to the definitions used or the standards used of the to which the tool is linked. Then in order to be an effective service, validation or career guidance, the tool should be always supported by a person behind it, a counselor or anybody who has the training for this. The adequate training is also important. The issue of accuracy and reliability, as we have seen in the Polish case, it takes roughly between 2 and 3 years in order to convince key stakeholders to use digital tools. And I think that's all. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Mariya, for this extensive overview of these two tools. I think there are very many different interesting aspects to discuss. Indeed, I would just take from what you lastly said about the pros and cons of using digital tools, and link it to the aim of the campaign, the Digital Weeks campaign, to enable everyone in an ideal future world to be able to use those tools, because indeed this is a barrier and continues to be a barrier for many people. Of course, the human factor is also very important, and this doesn't mean that there will be no role for the professionals. But these tools can really facilitate their work if people have the right skills to use and apply them, both from the practitioners and users side. So thank you very much for this. Now I would like to hand over to Laura, because the tool that she's going to present has been mentioned many times. So I hope that this build up your curiosity, and now we are going to find out what it is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gabriela, and thank you for inviting us to present during All Digital Week. I'm starting sharing the presentation. Okay, here we are. First of all, I introduce myself. My name is Laura Profiri, and I work for Centro Studi Pluriversum, which is an Italian company that develops innovative methodologies and technologies in the fields of career guidance, career education, employment service, and lifelong learning. We are a full partner in TRANSVAL, and
I'm sorry, I would like to ask the person who is who has his microphone on. Okay, sorry, Laura, please go ahead.
No problem. And so we have the chance to be full partner of TRANSVAL project, and we also had the opportunity to link it to another project where we are partner, which is the NADINE project, and NADINE platform has been chosen by our consortium to be used during the European training in the framework of the TRANSVAL project. So how did we arrive to select NADINE? We started by building a database of tools and methods, as it was shared before by my colleagues. And we started from a pool of 90 tools and methods that were analyzed. and evaluated. And we were looking for transferable practices that could be useful in one of the 4 phases of the validation process, and that could be free of charge. And we selected 4 tools to be used and presented to our trainees during the European training, and one of them is the NADINE platform. So NADINE is an Horizon 2020 research and innovation project, and it stands for the name for Digital Integrated System for the Social Support of Migrants and Refugees. So what is the scope of NADINE project and the NADINE platform is to use artificial intelligence and machine learning in order to speed up and facilitate the inclusion process of migrants and refugees when arriving in Italy. The idea behind NADINE is to use ICT-enabled solutions to adapt and create tailored services for migrants. How does it work? In a first moment, I will show you shortly the platform. Data on the user is collected in terms of skills, so skills assessment, on information on the background of the user, in terms of work experience, in terms of education, and also in terms of preferences. And it is linked, and then all this data and information is linked to specific training offered and proposed to the user, as well as tailored employment opportunities. So the platform provides several functionalities. There is a skill assessment, training programs, and also a chatbot that is conceived to provide important information to the migrant that arrives in Europe in terms of administrative important information. I will show you later on, covering the work, healthcare, and for example, academic titles recognition. Finally, last point is to create a database, a data lake available to public administration bodies, and to improve the services for migrants. Another interesting aspect that was taken in consideration when selecting NADINE platform is that NADINE competence framework covers 35 skills, and there was an interesting matching between a TRANSVAL competence framework and NADINE competence framework. If on one hand, as we are talking about 2 different competence frameworks, also with slightly different definitions, we consider we could not use the self-assessment tool proposed by NADINE as an assessment, but at the same time it could be extremely useful in terms of identification of skills. So in the first phase of the validation process, and also in the documentation phase, because the platform contains any portfolio. Here you can see examples of skills that can be linked. For example, just the first one, in NADINE we have organization and organizational skills, and in TRANSVAL we have managing and organizing activities. I would now like to share with you the platform. So you should see now the platform. If I have not selected only the... Could you give me a feedback if you see the platform or still my presentation in PowerPoint?
Still the presentation.
So I need to share the full screen. 1 second only.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Here it is. you could see now, you should see now the platform, right?
Yes.
Okay, this is the landing page of the NADINE platform. As soon as you arrive to this page, you have a video that presents you all the features of the platform. It is a 3-minute video, so it's very short, but you have already a quick overview of the services available. And then the user can start his journey, and that is made of 5 different steps. So the first one is about skills. I will show you in detail later the different pages. So here is where you can insert your information on your working experience, on your educational background, and where you have the assessment tools. Then you have a section on desires where you can also include some preferences in terms of the place where you would like to live. When looking for a job, very often we have to move, and so you can express your preferences. I want to live in a place where healthcare services, the quality of healthcare is high, and etc. Purchasing power, climate. So you can express a series of preferences. Once you have included your data on your skills, on your backgrounds, and on your desires, you can accede to a section where you can explore labor market opportunities. You have a section on training, and finally you can create your CV. Let's have a look on the e-portfolio. So this is where you start providing information on your background and skills that can be used later on to create your CV. You have a section on work experience. Here you have the chance to include, as in a normal CV, information on your experience, but you also have the opportunity to include pictures or files and other evidences that are particularly important, for example, in the second section of the e-portfolio, which is extra work experience. For the target group of this project, migrants and refugees, it is pretty important because it happens very often that the kind of experience is informal. So here you can document also your informal experiences. Then you can insert information on your education. Another interesting aspect of this e-portfolio is that you can insert your full list of experiences, and then at the end create tailored CV where you can hide certain experiences in order to be able to apply to different jobs with different requirements. Let's go to the skills assessment page. Here, you have the opportunity to assess your skills in 2 different ways. On one hand, you can use a psychometric questionnaire. You have always a video, an introduction to how the questionnaire works and which is your expected engagement in performing the questionnaire. It takes, as I was saying, around 1 hour and a half. And once you have performed the questionnaire, here you have a summary of the best scores you obtain on the different skills that were assessed. And you can also see visually the full range of skills. As I was mentioning before, the NADINE competence framework includes 35 different business-related skills, and you can see the scores you obtain in all the different skills. At the same time, one of the aim of the NADINE project was to use artificial intelligence, and in particular machine learning to connect the results obtained through the questionnaire to the results obtained while playing serious games. So 2 serious games are included in this platform. One is Tetris and the other is 2048. It takes around 15 minutes to be assessed through the games. And at the current stage of the project, which is closed, at the moment it's finished, but we, as a consortium, we are looking for opportunities to continue developing the platform, which at the moment is it's a pre-commercial phase or stage of development. As I was saying, how the project reached this objective to have the same score coming from the 2 different assessment tools. The situation now is what you can see here. There is a difference between the scores obtained in each skill through the questionnaire or through the serious games that differs plus or minus 1. So you can see here the scores obtained through the serious games. You have the same list of skills and you can see your results. Once you have assessed your skills, you can go to the training section of the platform. So here, based on the scores obtained, the platform suggests you to perform certain trainings. At the same time, you can explore and see the full list of trainings that covers 21 skills, and each section includes a learning zone with a video and a series of resources, a training section where you can do exercises and train yourself, and the final is a test. So you can assess your improvement in that specific skill. You can, as I was mentioning before, you can build your CV. You can build several CVs, adapt them to the specific job posting you're applying. And you also have a section where the platform suggests you to apply to certain positions that are open, or you can explore careers in the database. Last part of the platform, I was anticipating before, there is a chatbot divided by different areas where you can look for administrative information, for example, the work section. You have some frequently asked questions concerning the very practical question, how to find a job in that specific country. For example, in Italy, which are the most common websites used to post jobs, etc. But you can also ask here, insert here a specific question, for example, type of contracts, and you receive the information. I think I gave you an overview of the NADINE platform. Later on, if you have any question, I'm available to reply.
Thank you very much, Laura. Yes, this was a very concise but also very detailed overview, and I think it spurred a lot of interest among the participants with regards to this platform, me including. I want to learn more about it. There is just one quick question, I think, that you can respond about the languages in which the platform is available.
Absolutely. I go back to 1 second to share the platform. I want to show you the login. 1 second only. I can tell you. The different sections of the platform are available in different languages. At the moment, it is available, the full platform, in 6 languages. So it's available in Italian, Greek, Spanish, Farsi, Arabic, and French. So then you have, there is something I forgot to show you. You have also the possibility to train your languages. So there is an app that is online. And there you can learn English, French, and Spanish. But the chatbot, all the services are available in the 6 languages I was telling at the beginning.
Thank you very much. Okay, now I would like to hand over to Pauline to moderate the questions and answer session. I know she has prepared some questions for the participants. So Pauline, the floor is back to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I have prepared a Mentimeter and questions, but before I ask you to join and answer the questions, do you have any direct questions for our speakers today that you would like to ask? You can raise your hand if you wish to speak, or open your microphone directly. Well, then if not, I will see if you're still here, because you all have your camera turned off. So I will see using Mentimeter if you're with us. And I will ask you to join this Mentimeter. You can see on the top of the screen the code where you can join. So you go on mentimeter.com, you can join the presentation, you write the code. So it's 3953 75911. I recommend that you use your phone so you can also look at the screen on your computer at the same time. And I will wait just a few seconds that you join the tool and to answer the first question. I see, Gabriela, you're showing something. Did you join? Is it working well? Okay. Perfect. So the first question is, have you ever used digital tools for the validation? So validation is identification of skills, documentation, so portfolios, assessments, and certification. And you can answer, yes, I used it in my professional life, so as a staff member. You can also answer if you used it as a learner. And if you didn't, you can say no. So I see, for the moment, we have 11 respondents, and overwhelmingly, you didn't use yet digital tools. So that's actually a very topical event that we are having today that can perhaps encourage you to use more tools. So again, you can go on menti.com on your phone or computer and fill the code, which is 3953 7591. Yes, so indeed there is a lot to do to promote the digital tools for the validation of transversal skills. Maybe you use some tools, but not for transversal skills. So for job specific, or what we call the occupational skills. For your CV, maybe you didn't add perhaps on your online CV, or if you use perhaps Europass, maybe you didn't add your transversal skills. But there's a lot of work indeed from our behalf, but on all the stakeholders in the European Union to promote digital tools to validate transversal skills. So that's very good to know, and thank you for answering. I will now move to the next question. Can you name digital tools for the validation of transversal skills? And don't cheat, you cannot name a tool that was presented today. So think of any of the names of tools that are used. I will give you a few minutes to answer. Of course, if you didn't use all these tools, you might not know of some, but perhaps you heard in your country some that are being used. Of course, Europass is one of the most famous and used tool in the European Union. It's you can create your CV, and now it has been enriched. In the new version, you can really add any kind of experience, not just work experience. You can add your transversal skills. You can upload media, use it as a portfolio. It is being more and more interoperable, so you can also link it to other platforms like open badges or tools. So I see that there's the ComCom tools, which I think is also presented at the All Digital Week. Okay, I will move now to the next question, since you perhaps have less experience with digital tools at the moment. Again, did you ever use e-portfolio? So did you ever use a platform where you upload your CV, or you upload evidence of your competence? What could it be?
Sorry, Pauline, now I have a question. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you. So for example, can we consider that LinkedIn is an e-portfolio? So everybody who has a profile on LinkedIn, for example, can they answer yes here, in your opinion?
Well, I would say that LinkedIn for me is more like a CV page. So you see your work experience, your volunteering experience, and so on. Of course, you can upload, for instance, you can upload your publications. So in a way, it is a portfolio. So yeah,
it's a tricky one.
It is a mix. Yeah, indeed. You could qualify it. So yes, if you use LinkedIn, then you can answer yes, I use it as a learner. Or if you use it with learners or validation candidates or students, then you can say that you used it in your job. So compared to the previous question of digital tools for the validation, it's a bit paradoxical, because here you used e-portfolio. So you didn't use digital tools for validating transversal skills, but you have a bit more use of e-portfolio, perhaps because you use LinkedIn, and this also qualifies perhaps as a digital tool that kind of validate transversal skills. Maybe it identifies transversal skills, but of course it doesn't assess your skills. Okay, the next question is, because we continue to collect good practices, tools that are being used in the European Union. There are so many that we are aware, of course. We don't have the exhaustive list of them. So if you're aware of e-portfolio platforms that are available in your country, or perhaps transnationally, that we can use, you can name it, and if you have a link, or if you can name also the country where it is being used. So we have seen the My Portfolio platform, which is being used in Poland. It's great, but we would really like to use it in TRANSVAL-EU, because the practitioners we talked to actually said that portfolio are one of the main tools that they need in their practice. But it's not that easy to find an e-portfolio platform that is available in different languages, and it's of open access, free access, that we could reuse, because we're not going to design a new tool from scratch in this project. So yeah, we're looking in, maybe there's an e-portfolio platform available in all the European countries. Perhaps it is used by one organization, perhaps it is used by the Public Employment Service. Perhaps it was designed within the European projects, but we will look into also the Erasmus Plus project and see if more e-portfolio platform has been created. I think also linking with the open badges. There are open badge services and platform where you can also, they call it a backpack. You can also upload the evidence, and it's also functions the same as a portfolio platform. So you can upload your open badges would describe your experience and your competencies. And then you can find on these platforms your work experience, your diploma, proof of your competencies, etc. And these are can be considered as well as e-portfolio platform. And open badges platform, I know there are some that are used internationally, available internationally, but often they bear a certain cost. So they can't really be freely used and transferred into the national context with any users. Okay, so we have two examples. One was presented today, and then there's another one which appears to be coming from Bulgaria. If I take the B and the G as an acronym for Bulgaria, so that's good to know that there's something in Bulgaria. We can perhaps include it in our database of tools and methods. We're looking to that. Also, there seemed to be a European initiative. And thank you for including this in form of a link that we will also look into. It's called pathwaysforemploy.eu. So we will look into that. Actually, it's a very useful question for us because we are looking for e-portfolio tools for the European training that we can also recommend for the practitioners to use in their practice. There's a chance that there was also an e-portfolio tool used in Hungary by the teachers. So we will look also into that and try to find that tool and explore it. Okay, so these are a few examples. If there are not more, I will then move to the it's not the last, but the one before last question. Have you ever used open badges? So perhaps you know open badges is coming actually from the non-formal education sector. It was designed and developed almost, I think, two decades ago, something like this. And it was developed by the Scouts. So the Scouts had the first open badges. So I can imagine that back at the time, it was not digital open badges. It was just a badge that you would get and that would say you have competence in this or this, that you would wear on your sweater and yourself. But then they also digitalized the open badges, and they're still using it in the Scouts network. But now it is being used also by companies, schools, universities, more and more. So the question is, do you use open badge, or have you ever used an open badge? And if you do so, if you can share information, if the open badge is accessible publicly, feel free to share it with us. Okay, so I think we also need to do another webinar showcasing open badge tools. Maybe for the next All Digital Week next year. But I'm sure there have been All Digital Week events where there was some open badge solution presented. Okay, that's good to know that also the initiative Pathways for Employ is using open badges. So they're using e-portfolios as well as open badges. It's quite interesting that we also have a representative of CDFOP today, and he's been working on the guidelines for the validation of non-formal and informal learning. And also next year, they will be working on the inventory of validation and non-formal and informal learning. And of course, in that important work at European level, they are looking into the innovative ways of validating competencies, and they will present I think in this publication, all the various ways in Europe where how you can validate transversal skills, and of course, digital tools will have a good place in there.
Hi, good morning, Pauline.
Good morning, Ernesto.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I'm going in and out because there's a lot of things going on, so I couldn't really be as engaged as I would have liked. Apologies for that. Yeah, I mean, I think that is crucial. I mean, the digital issues in validation, of course. And I think that one of the aspects that we are looking at, or that we can see, obviously, is that this is really a game changer, I think, no? So, I mean, the work that you are doing, I think it's very relevant because this is the kind of information that we need. From that to, I mean, I wouldn't say that in the guidelines we will be able to list or to provide, let's say, information on all the digital platforms and things like this that there is at the European level. But I think that this is something that is somehow needed in a way. We need more repositories on tools and kind of in what way we can share all these very useful, I think, and valuable tools. And then I think the next step will be to try to kind of, to what extent we can kind of bring them together or kind of make something that can be used, if you want, commonly. So I think, again, that the work that Transval is doing is quite relevant for that, but I think that it will take quite a lot of time. And from my point of view, and this is where you were asking about if we have used portfolios, you know, and I was thinking from my point of view, I think Europass, let's say, is in a position to become, if you want, the European reference for these kind of things. And the work that they are doing, I think, on digital credentials go in that direction, I would say. But, so just to, as you put me on the spot, I wanted to come in. But apologies that I cannot engage as much as I want.
No, but thank you. I was actually not asking you to speak necessarily, but thank you for doing so and talking a bit about the work you're doing actually on the publication, very important publication from CEDEFOP. And of course, yes, to have an exhaustive list of tools will perhaps not be the case, but I think you include sometimes good practices. I think like the example from Poland, which is also in a way sponsored by the ministry, is, for instance, a good practice that can be showcased in inventory, for instance. So yeah, I hope this, I mean, all this work can contribute to this.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and so I think that, I mean, the European inventory, I mean, the idea is that we are, of course, now we are developing the 2020, hopefully in 2023, we'll have the European inventory, a new edition. And there, I think that, yeah, all these tools, all this information, all the work that you are doing, I hope that we will be able to collect it and kind of bring in. And of course, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the work that all these European projects are doing, or the way I see it at least, this is input precisely for the guidelines and to advance in a way. How can we do validation in a better way? How can we advance the field? How can we connect better the different contexts? So I think that all this needs to be taken into account. And partly that's why I'm here also.
Yes, indeed. I think you raised an important point that there's so many initiatives going on. We're not aware of all of them, but there's a need indeed to connect all these initiatives. So, for instance, we have open badges. It needs to be connected with Europass, and we don't need to perhaps create 100 e-portfolio platform, but maybe using one and spread it in all the countries can be very relevant. It's cost efficient. It helps for the visibility of the platform for the users to know what to use. So there are a lot of benefits in building cooperation and synergies between all these tools and initiatives that we see in Europe. And that's also something that we are trying to do with TRANSVAL-EU. We don't reinvent the wheel. We see what's going on and we try to use it. And Yes. Before closing this event, I will just ask you a last question. This one, I think you can all answer, hopefully. What is your main takeaway from all this presentation? I think it was a very dense and very rich presentation, very interesting. I mean, a part of the project, I know what is being presented, but I still find it interesting to hear about all of this. So now I'm asking you, what is your main takeaway from this event, from the presentation that you heard today? And I will give you a few minutes to answer. We still have 5 minutes before the end of this event. Anyone who can also take the floor if you want to share more in a more live manner. So I saw that there's a comment in the chat and that employers are interested in applicable skills. And transversal skills are the most transferable between, occupation, work, context, life. But George is saying that competency in the context is what matters. I was mentioning before the work done by ESCO. And it's like an academic debate. Should they call transversal skills? Should they call it transversal competencies? And they've been discussing this. Actually, decided not to discuss this. They decided that instead of choosing skills or competencies, and you will find in your own European language, perhaps you have only one word to define skills or competence. So the ESCO working group, they decided not to choose between those two because, yeah, you could, spend hours, days, even weeks or years discussing should we use the term skill or competencies. So they call them mapping, the mapping that I showed in my presentation, transversal skills and competencies mapping. So maybe, if you know the key competence framework for lifelong learning, they also define the competencies as knowledge, skills, and attitudes. But there are many other ways of defining competencies or building a referential around competencies. So what is your main takeaway for this event? And we will close with that. So you got some insights and initiatives, so that was also one of our goals today. Indeed, transversal skills matter. I think we are coming to a point that we don't need to stress that so much, but there are still people that you need to value it towards too. I think there are some policymakers that still think that job skills are what we need to develop and what we need to validate, and they perhaps have less interest in personal development skills. Whereas transversal skills, you can use it. Okay, you can use it in your job, but you can also use it as a citizen. Digital identity, managing your digital identity. You can do it because you use LinkedIn for personal, not LinkedIn, Instagram for your personal use, but you can also use it in your job. And that's really important skill, and that's transferable. So that needs to be validated, even if it has a scope which is, it goes beyond the labor market. Importance of gaining trust, indeed. We have to convince, as I said, the practitioners, the policymakers, all the stakeholders to use these tools. Some of you got a better understanding of the digital tools available. Thank you for saying that the event was great and useful. It was also said that the NADINE platform is really interesting. And you can, of course, go and explore it further. It's open access. You can freely use it. Again, trust, involving the stakeholders in the recognition. You also gain some knowledge on interesting initiatives. And what is the potential? Because it's really about potential of using digital tools in your assessment or certification. Also was useful what was shared about the benefits and concerns regarding the digital tools and how we can mitigate them. Okay. You can continue to add your answer on the main takeaway. And I don't know if the team of All Digital wants to say a few concluding words, or maybe the partners who made the presentation today.
Yes, thank you very much, Pauline, for moderating this session. I think there were some quite interesting insights that we got from it. I would like to thank once again all the speakers, all the participants. Thank you also for sticking to the time frame of the event. We are really on schedule. Thank you very much for sharing this interesting content. I would like to say that for me personally, this was my favorite All Digital Week's event. I've followed all of them and I'm honest. So once again, thank you very much. In the beginning, Peter mentioned that there are 2 more weeks left of this annual campaign. We will be really happy to see you there to exploit the 2 topics that remain, the cybersecurity topic and the participation of girls and women in STEM and STEAM education. They are, I would say, all linked together. I'm sure there will be very interesting initiatives shared in those events as well. And I would like to wish you a wonderful day. Stay in touch with TRANSVAL-EU through our website and LinkedIn. And I'm sure that we will have more to share in the coming months as the project will intensify with the field activities. So yeah, thank you very much. And
thank you very much again, Gabriela.
we will ask the speakers for their consent, and we will